Hello and welcome back to the Tin Barn. I'm Pragmatic Lee, and for this video I'm going to be primarily working over here at the milling machine. We're going to make a vise for the milling machine. They're called two-piece vices, but in reality there's probably closer to 10 pieces. But I'll bring the camera in a little closer here and show you what we're going to actually be doing. This is likely going to be a two-part video. I think there's enough material here to warrant two videos, and this first one is going to be dedicated mainly to material prep. I think that's always an important part of a job. As Harold Waters likes to say, every job starts on the saw, and this one will as well. But there's going to be some sawing, some surface grinder work, and then primarily work over here on the milling machine. So again, let me zoom in and I'll show you what we're going to be working on. Alright, this is my benchtop Precision Matthews 727 milling machine. As you can see, I've made several different modifications to it, including knobs here for tightening the X-axis lock, limit switches and stops, Power X feed, and also power feed for the raise the column up and down. See it moving up here. And this is a 4-inch machine vise, milling vise that you've seen in the previous video, where I made these outside jaws, and I keep those mounted on there. They come in useful quite often. But what we're going to do today is this is some pieces of 1 inch by 2 inch. They're currently 11 inches long, some hot roll steel that I picked up off a seller on eBay. But we're going to cut these to length. One of these will be the fixed jaw. There'll be 2 holes through here. Might even go 3. It's going to span all 3 of the slots in my mill table. We'll look at that in the second video. But one will be mounted down here. A second one will be mounted here or at any point. These can be mounted at any point on the mill. I've got the vise on now. I don't want to take it off because I'll be needing it in just a minute. But then the third one will be the movable vise. It'll have pins through it, and this will only have about a half, maybe 3/4 of an inch of movement. This will be placed down solid. This will be placed solid, and then this can move in and out to tighten down on the work, as I say, about a half to 3/4 inch of travel. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to go over to the workbench and lay these off. My milling table is 7.5 inches, so I'm going to lay this out lengthwise just maybe a 100,000ths over 7.5 inches. We'll carry them over to the saw them off. Then I'm going to go ahead first thing after sawing and put them on the surface grinder and get good finishes on them. Okay, I've got each of the 3 pieces rough cut to length. What we're going to do now is just simply set up and clean up, square up one end. And of course I do that climb conventional milling and then I'll about 3 or 4 thousandths and do a climb mill on. And we got a very good end. So I'm going to do that to all 3 of them. Then I'll bring you back when we get ready to turn them around and mill them to length. Okay, I've got one end cleaned up on all 3 of the pieces. I've got a work stop set up down here on the other end of the mill, the other side of the mill. And I'm going to set the work in and bump it up to that stock. Sorry about that. That was a phone call from the wife, so I figured I better take it. But anyhow, I got the work piece bumped up against this work stop over here. I'll do all 3 of the pieces the same. I'm going to first clean up this end, then get a measurement on it. What we're looking for is the table measures 7.49 inches. So that's probably what we're going to try to shoot for. All right, that cleaned up enough at that end that I can get a measurement. That's 756. That actually measured 7,566. We're looking 749, so that's about 76 thousandths. So I'll zero out the DRO right there. And those are some wicked little needles it's throwing out at me. That was about 35 of it, so I'll go on up to 70 now. And that last 6 thousandths I'll take climb milling. And this length, while I would like to have it close, is by no means critical. We'll see how close we came. 7.905, so we're 5 thousandths long. I believe that's perfectly fine for a milling vise jaw. All right, I'm going to do the same thing to the other 2. Then we're going to go over to the surface grinder and prep these pieces to do a little bit more precision work on. One other comment before I take this out, or before I move anything, I'm going to set the x-axis 0, and then as I bump my next workpiece up to this, all I've got to do is bring the DRO back to 0, and they should all be the same length. All right, I have all 3 of the pieces milled to length now, and I've got them over here on the surface grinder. I had to take my fence off the back because this is a 6-inch chuck, and with that fence on it was costing me about 3/8 of an inch. So I just took that off, and before I come here to the surface grinder, I carried these pieces into the horizontal belt sander and just laid one side down of each piece and removed any possible burrs, high spots. Did that to all 3 pieces on one side and on one edge as well. So we're going to surface grind these all to the same thickness, all at the same time, or all 3 of them at the same time. I'm going to ease down on my material now. As a matter of fact, I think I'll do that by hand, because I definitely don't want to slip and put any gouges in there. Okay. Of course, I'm using the coarse feed on the surface grinder now. All right, that's just a hint of bumping. So what I'm going to do is come off this edge, and since I've got 3 pieces here, I'm not going to advance any at all until I've got one clear pass across everything. We'll get some coolant going as well. Right now I'm just on the hunt for any high spots that might be on the material, like right there. I advanced down 2 thousandths I'm expecting this to probably take, I don't know, I'm just guessing right now, at least 10 if not 20 thousandths to get a good clean surface. Not sure if I mentioned this, but the seller I bought this from said this was hot roll that had been sandblasted to remove the mill scale. But it had been sitting around for a while and there was some surface rust on it. Just for the sake of knowing, that was 2 thousandths from the touch off. So I'm going to set my dial just to get an idea on this side how much it takes to clean it up. And until we start contacting all the way from end to end, I'm going to take 2 thousandths at the time. All right, I think we'll just do 1 thousandths at the time now. Alright, that's pretty much got it cleaned up except for just a tiny little pit in a couple places. So I'm going to take another thousandths feeding in and then take my finishing pass of 4/10 coming back out. So we'll take another thousandths now, and that makes a total of 7. All right, that was, as I say, 7 thousandths it took to clean it up. I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4/10 of a thousandths, and instead of stepping over 100 thousandths at a time, I'm simply going to step over 20 thousandths at a time. All right, I think I'm going to be happy with that finish. Hot roll doesn't produce quite as good a finish as tool steel or even cold roll, but that's a plenty good finish for what we got going on here. All right, I'm going to take these pieces off, clean the chuck up, flip them over. Before I put them back on here, I'll get another wheel dress, dress it again. Then we'll do the other side. I'll bring it back when we get ready to do the edges. All right, I've got the 2 sides to all 3 of the pieces surface ground now. And as I said before, I carried these over to the horizontal belt sander and just laid this on there on one edge to get one edge that should fit down good. I've got a clean dress on the wheel again. So we'll place our 3 pieces on. All right, so we're ready to get this edge. And again, I'm going to do this just like the other. Won't be a lot of narration on this. Okay, I may have to rename this video to the video of interruptions. It's got a knock on the door. It was the LP gas man coming to pick up a tank, but I'm not sure where we're left off. But in any case, we're going to do this first edge. Okay, touched off there. And I'm not sure if I pointed it out, but I do have a clean dress on the wheel. And this is why you don't touch off and then automatically add a couple thousandths to your first pass, because there's definitely a high edge here, much higher than where I touched off. Okay, we're past that now. You may notice also on the mag chuck that I put the fence back on. And anytime you take a fence off like that, put it back on, you do need to grind it in place if you want it to be perpendicular to your wheel. So I did that off camera, just took about a thousandths just to clean that edge up. The very edges of these edges is definitely higher than the rest of it. All right, I'm going to continue this process until we got a clean all the way around. Okay, I'm not sure what was up with that, but this outside piece was definitely sitting a little higher than the center and back pieces. I think maybe I just didn't put as much pressure on it when I put it over on the surface grind or on the horizontal belt sander, and probably had to take about 10 or 12 extra passes, but keeping in mind 10 or 12 is only 10 or 12 thousandths. So I'm going to make a finishing pass here of 4/10 on these two edges, then I'll flip it over and do the other two. All right, like I say, I'm going to flip these over now, get a fresh dress on the wheel, do the other edges, and then we'll come back and be ready to put our chamfers on. Okay, got the opposite edges done now. I'm going to take these off, clean the chuck up, then get set up to do the chamfers on all the edges. Now, if you watch my video from a couple weeks back, it might have been 3 or 4 weeks back now, on the setup and use of the Tom Lipton chamfering block, you saw how we set that up against the fence. And this is another reason you want that fence to be exactly perpendicular to your wheel. But the problem we have now is that with it up against the fence, I can't get the piece of the workpiece in here. It's too long to go in and set on that 45. Excuse me. And I have seen some other guys building them where they're making this shorter. And I encourage you, go ahead and get this 4.5 inch height if you can, if you've got the material where you can do that. But to get this to where we can get to it, or where we can get the full length, I'm going to take a couple 1, 2, 3 blocks. and put behind them. Now that should keep everything perpendicular. And I got clearance down here now. So we'll be sure that's up tight and lock it down. Now we want to come in again, and this wheel has not been taken off since I did the side dress on it, so there shouldn't be any wobble in the wheel. Now I'm taking it down again. If you can see where the wheel fits in to this slot we cut in the back, and bringing it down enough so that I've got surface showing down here. And I like that position on this axis, so I'm going, as I pointed out before in that setup on this, I've made myself a lock down here. Now, to get the depth again, we're going to use the little block with one of the flat edges or one of the square edges. And I'm going to advance in, which is actually the Z-axis on a surface grinder. When you're headed in line with the spindle is the Z-axis. So I'm just going to move this in until it just barely touches. All right. Now I will set the wheel. I'm setting 0 on my feed wheel. And I'm going to go in, there's 10, I'm going to go in 15 thousandths to start with. I may have to make second runs on this because some of these, the mold that this hot roll come out of, getting a flat surface on there didn't quite give a square corner there, but we'll see if this squares it up. Which that did. That's the one I already, nope. This is an edge here that the mold was a little bit deeper. I'm going to have to set in a little further. And this is 1 inch across. I'm going to see how well I can hold that and just go straight into it. Alright, all but this one edge right here cleaned up. So I'm going to do all 3 of the pieces like this. Then I'll bring you back when we set in just a little bit deeper. Alright, I've got all the edges that would touch done, the ends. I'm going to advance in another 15 thousandths now. And this seemed to be the largest mold edge still left. So let's see if that cleans up now. Yes, it did. So we'll go all the way around and do that. All right, hopefully you can see that now. So this block, I call it the Tom Lipton chamfer block, just puts a beautiful edge all the way around on the work pieces. I'm going to do the other two, and then we'll meet back over at the workbench and put a recap on this or finalize this part 1 video. Okay, I think this is going to about wrap up this video on the material prep for our 2-piece mill vise. We started out with some pretty rough hot roll. It had been sandblasted to remove the mill scale, but was still fairly rough. But we got these milled, or got them surface ground down, cut the length, milled the length, and chamfered on all the edges. So hope you got a little bit out of this. As I said earlier, work prep is one of the I think one of the most important aspects of any project, and so oftentimes we kind of glaze over that in our videos and don't really spend a lot of time on work prep. Now what I'll do in the next video, we'll drill a couple holes. I'll match these up, this one and this one maybe. Drill a couple holes to mount in the slots in the mill table. Then we'll make these two up, drill some holes through for this 1/2-inch rod. There'll be guide rods. Again, this piece will only have about a 1/2 to maybe 3/4 inch of travel. There will be a push screw, probably a 1/2-13 socket head cap screw on this end to push the vise in, and the 2 rods to keep it straight. So stay tuned to the channel. We'll be back in a few days with the second part of this series.